We're in a summer series, What is God Like? This is part 6, and this is homecoming. So Jesus is answering his critics. His critics are frustrated with him because he is welcoming, embracing, making friends of people that they have contempt for. People that are termed, in a general sense, sinners, which means bad people doing bad things. And it seemed that sinners were attracted to Jesus, and Jesus embraced them and called them friends. And so the religious establishment of the day was very critical of him. Well, in order to explain what he was doing and why, and as it were, to defend his actions, he told a story. The story's fairly long. It has 3 parts. And basically what he's saying is, this is what God is like. God is like a shepherd who has 100 sheep, loses one, and so he leaves the 99, goes, does everything he can till he finds the one, and when he finds it, then he throws a party, celebration. That's what God is like. God is like a woman who has 10 coins. She loses one, she sweeps the house, does everything she can till she finds it, and then when she finds it, she throws a party. God is like that. Lost things. He's also like a father who has 2 sons, and that's where we are today. And Jesus has been telling a story about a father and the younger son who makes unspeakable choices of shaming, embarrassing, dishonoring, rejecting his father. And he takes his share of the estate, goes to a distant country, and one way we could think about that is he went east into what then in those ancient days was Babylon, and he spent the money with prostitutes and on wild living. When the money ran out, which it did, there was a famine in the land. And when it gripped the land, it meant there was not enough food for anybody. And if you were somebody like this prodigal son, you were not going to be taken care of. You were going to be last on the list. The best he could do was to hire himself out to a pig rancher and take care of pigs. And as we said last week, the most degrading thing a young Jewish boy could possibly do would be to take care of pigs. So he's at the bottom, the absolute bottom. And as Jesus is telling this story, there's going to be a point of intersection. And that's what we're going to look at today. The son is moving away, he's crashed, and then, I like what it says in Luke 15:17 in the NIV, when he came to his senses. He's in with the pigs, he has nothing, he has no way to get anything, nobody cares about him, and he comes to his senses. He wakes up and realizes he has a choice. We always have a choice. He had a choice. And he says, I can go home to my father. And here's what he says, I will get up and go back to my father. I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven. I have sinned against you. Is that true? He had done both of those things. I am no longer fit to be called your son. Is that true? He's unworthy. Make me like one of your hired workers. So he got up and went to his father. Now, he had a level of faith that his father would at least receive him and make him a hired hand. And that would be better than what he had. So he gets up and goes to the Father. Now, if you're in the audience and Jesus is telling the story, this is where it's coming to. This is this collision course spoken of in that song of grace and mercy. The Father, the prodigal son. So as the prodigal son is coming home, those who are listening to this story, the audience, they're thinking, okay, now we're going to find out what's going on. And there are those who would be very negative, very angry, very contemptuous of this young man who would say, just wait till his father gets his hands on this kid. Man, is he going to take care of him? And then there would be those all the way on the other side who identify with the prodigal son. Their lives have been reflected in the way this young man has lived his life. And they don't know what's going to happen, but there is just that little light of hope that maybe something good is going to come out of this. So he got up, went to his father. And while he was still a long way off, now I love this because this is emphasized in the original language. This isn't an addition, this is a translation of this. And what it means is the father must have been watching for him or he wouldn't have seen him a long way off. Am I making sense? This isn't a casual, oh, I'm walking by, I look down the road and I see all these people walking. But if you're looking for somebody, you're intent, you're focused. He's watching. And the way I would do this if I were a director, this is a hot country. I like those waves like in the desert where the sun is creating this distortion and mirages. And you see somebody, but you don't see them, and they come forward, and pretty soon they kind of come out of the mirage or the distortion, and then you can see them. That's what I do in this one. I like that idea because to me, there is the conscious focus, and you don't know for sure when you first see somebody, is it them? But right age, right gait, the appearance, the whole thing, and at some point, bam, you see him. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to be seen. You ever wanted to get into traffic? You're on a side street, and basically you're begging. You sit behind the wheel. Somebody have mercy on me. And people are driving by, and they're not going to look at you. No way are they going to look at you. And then somebody slows down, and they look at you. They see you. That's a lot better than being seen when you do something wrong. Have you been seen that way too? Yeah. But that eye contact means something. When we have eye contact, we know we've been seen, and they know we're seeing them. Something's going on with him seeing his son. This is an important ingredient into what God's doing. His father saw him coming. Now, this is what God is like. Really important to understand. This is what Jesus is saying. This is what God is like. When he sees you, when he sees this prodigal son who shamed him, embarrassed him, rejected him, done everything wrong, his heart is filled with love and compassion. It's all the wrong thing. He should be angry. He should have determined some kind of a punishment for this son. Instead, his heart is filled, which means there's no room for anything else, with love and with mercy, with compassion. And because of that, he is moved. And he does the unthinkable. He runs. You say, what's so unthinkable about that? Well, if you're my age, that's pretty unthinkable. And Some of us are still trying to shuffle around anyway. But the point being, in this case, dignity dictated that someone of his station, in his place, in his family, you don't run. You don't have to run. The servants run. The people that are looking after you and doing your bidding business, they're the ones who run. So he runs. Is he focused? He is. And I'd love to again, be the director, because he's running, but he has servants around him, so they're all running behind him. He's running. They have to be with him. That's their job. They got to be there to look after him, whatever he needs. He's running. And he's got these flowing robes, and here's these servants, and they're flowing robes, and they're not used to just getting out and booking it down the road. And he's going for it, and they're going, all of these things are going through their mind. What is going on? He ran to his son, he embraced him, and he kissed him. Was that a surprised boy? Did that surprise anybody in the audience? Did that make some of them happy? And did that make some of them angry? Stay with me. Just think about it. This kid should pay. No justice. What is this father doing? Why in the world would this father behave in this particular manner? Back at the first of the year, I updated our passion, vision, mission statement. And part of that process was to revisit the core, the engine, the passion of our heart as a church. And I wrote this, frankly, I believe it was a God thing. I had left the car repair shop up on Clearview Hill and was driving back on Paradise Lake Road to our home, Safeway, about a 15, 20-minute drive. And during that time, this is what came. And I am so pleased with it, because I don't even have to think about it now. I can just rattle it off, that this fits so well. Because I asked people, okay, what makes NCC NCC? And I remember one, Dave said, this is the Father Heart of God. That's why I'm here. Now, for a lot of us, we know what that means, but a lot of people don't know what that means. You say, oh, God is a father and he has a father heart. What does that mean? Well, it means he has love, acceptance, and forgiveness for his people, his children. And so this is how I wrote it. We are compelled, which means we have passion, which means it's the engine, the core, by God's love, acceptance, and forgiveness, his Father heart, to live a life and speak a message that will help those he is seeking. Is God seeking? What did Jesus say? I've come to seek and to save that which was lost. And who is one with the Father? Jesus is. Find their way home by faith in Jesus. I love that. I love that because of how much it's impacted my life. In 1988, well, let me go back further than that. Go all the way back. I was born into a Mormon home, and my dad was in the Army. He was an alcoholic. And my mother divorced him when I was 2 out of neglect and fear. And that would be the last time I would ever see him, though I can't recollect. My memory does not go back that young. But for me, The whole thing of a father, there was an emptiness, there was a loss, but what filled that place of father was pain, fear, and anger. That filled that spot, that place. And Father is that whole thing has been given to us, that relationship, to represent what God is like. And so when we get something so distorted and so upside down, it leaves a massive hole in the very core of who we are, the very foundation of our person. And that was me. And meeting Jesus was great, and that began a process of God healing me and working, but he had not yet got down to this core. This core was so cemented in, it was like it was locked down. And in 1988, he broke down the walls. And he did something really amazing for me. Sue would ask me, she said, "Don't you want to see your dad?" And I'd say, "No." I didn't want to open that door. I didn't want to go back to that pain, fear, and anger. I didn't want to walk through all of that stuff. And why in the world would I want to do that? He abandoned me. He rejected me. He did these things. What have I got to do with him? And when God came in to this deepest part of me, the core of my person, he brought love, acceptance, and forgiveness. He brought his heart into that. And it became visceral. It became emotional. It became so real to me, it changed my whole core. It changed my beginning. I am God's child before I am Bill Kershaw's child. An amazing thing happened. Well, so this is 1988. In December of 88, I decided I want to see my dad. Now, why would I want to see my dad? Something had to have changed. Now, what had to have changed was the pain, fear, and anger had to have been dealt with, and it was God that dealt with it. And so I want to find him. So I got the white pages for Salt Lake, and he was the first Bill Kershaw. Called him, and granddaughter answered the phone, and then I talked to him, and he was very warm. "Oh, Levi, I wondered what happened to you." Well, I kind of wondered what happened to you too. I didn't say that. I mean, but, well, I live in Seattle, yada, yada, yada. So we arranged a meeting. I would fly through Salt Lake on the way to Denver the next summer, 89, to a pastor's conference in Denver. And we would lay over for 3-4 hours so that I could meet my dad. He would bring his wife, Ruby, dear woman, and my grandmother. And I had a grandma, and she had immigrated from Holland, full-blooded Dutch, so I'm a quarter Dutch, and she had come to Salt Lake to be at the center of Mormonism. And her family had 6 children, and the oldest was my dad. And I was the firstborn grandson. So she had lost her firstborn grandson, besides which my dad was the black sheep. And so that whole disconnect. So he said, "I'll bring my mom, I'll bring your grandma." I said, "Whoa, this is going to be wild, crazy." So we fly over there. So what's going on inside of me? I mean, what's he going to be like? What's going to I looked all over for the pictures we have of that. Sue could have helped me, but anyway, I couldn't find them. But the picture's crazy. Here's my dad, and here I am standing next to him. I mean, there's obviously a resemblance. It's almost scary. You look at it, you got to go, whoa. But he was great. He was just very casual, very accepting, and we talked. And talked to his wife, but my grandma, oh my gosh, my grandma, that was huge. That just really, I could feel her loss of all those years. And so we visited from time to time, and he died actually not long after that of cancer. And but my point is this, that God did something in me that I couldn't do myself. God brought something to the core of my heart, and he changed me. And if he could change me in my relationship with my birth father to the point where I would be willing to forgive him, accept him, and love him, and put aside all that other stuff, that would be class 1 miracle. And that's exactly what that was. And that moment of seeing him and seeing my grandmother, that was priceless. That was an amazing moment. Imagine this moment for this son, this prodigal son, when the father loves on him this way. When he sees him, when he runs to him, when he embraces him, and when he kisses him. How's he doing? He's undone. He's undone, totally unexpected, like, man, because he's never seen his dad in this situation. He's never seen his dad called on to bring this kind of mercy and grace. But now he has seen this, he has experienced this for himself. Powerful. Well, I actually know what I'm going to do in September. Now, those of you who know me know that that's the next miracle. Is you will notice also you have notes in your bulletin of my sermons. That is even a bigger miracle. And I'm an extemporaneous speaker, and man, I wake up Sunday morning sometimes with half of what I'm going to say. So to get it so I can create it with Nikki on Friday is, yikes, that's a big thing. So I was asking God, okay, what are we going to do this fall? Praying about it. And I am really excited about this because as much as this summer we have looked at what God is like, this fall, we'll say, what does God want for us? This is what God is like. What does he want for us? And undercurrent of what I'm going to teach will have to do with our vision. Our vision is to see people experience healing. Did I experience healing? When your faith in Jesus, did you experience healing? Is your healing done? No. The word salvation actually means to be healed into wholeness. Belonging. Oh my goodness, that was such a huge one. I was a stepchild, and I felt like a stepchild. I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't know where I fit. I didn't know who I was. Even at 44, I was roaming around inside trying to find an anchor in of my person. And that's what God did for me. I belong because he chose me. In fact, I found that doing this message today on homecoming, that I couldn't do all of it I wanted to do in one session. So the next time I teach will be like part 2, and it's going to be on Abba, and then restoration will be after that. I'll explain that a little bit better here in a minute. People experience healing, belonging, and realize their potential.